And it looks like I don't have any audio, so there is the audio, everybody. Sorry about that. This live weather briefing. There is the experimental storm surge graphic showing that greatest storm surge near the Tampa Bay area with 2 to 4 foot peak storm surge being indicated there. And that's likely going to be just as this system passes a little bit to the west of Tampa Bay tomorrow, and then you'll get those southwesterlies along the southern edge of that circulation, piling water up the Tampa Bay area, and that's why that peak surge looks like 2 to 4 feet there near Tampa, 1 to 2 feet across the Keys. The entire length of the Keys there could have a pretty substantial storm surge, and it doesn't take much to create a deadly, life-threatening situation. If you're in one of those low-lying areas and you get a 2 to 4 foot surge, that's going to cause big problems. It's going to inundate your vehicle. Definitely going to be a cause for concern there. But look at that convective burst. Hurricane Hunter, NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft did indicate an extrapolated minimum pressure of 1,006 millibars of this center. That center is located just on the western edge of that convective burst, but it is possible that this could intensify just a bit on approach to Havana. We have slowed down the forward speed. We are initiating this turn off to the north-northwest. That means a little bit less tendency for that tilting from the west to the east, from the low levels up to the mid levels, but it is still plaguing this system, that tilting from the low level center. It does look like on satellite too, you do have some banding into that center, showing that center of circulation as confirmed by Hurricane Hunter aircraft on the western edge of this convective burst. But this convective burst is still leading to latent heat release as well with all that convection. That should maintain those relatively low surface pressures despite this tilting from the west to the east of Elsa. And you can definitely see that convective burst a lot more clearly using the other satellite products there. And it is approaching the Zapata swamp here. That's where it looks like this system is going to be making landfall just to the southeast of Havana. And there actually is relatively low-lying areas right around Havana here. This little swath across the western side of Cuba is really the perfect spot for a tropical cyclone to cross Cuba with relatively minimal disruption to the vortex core. This does have a relatively compact core there as well. You can see it based on the Havana radar as well. This is from AccuWeather, but you can certainly see that compact core there closing in on the Zapata swamp location, and then it's going to be making a beeline toward Havana, and you can definitely see some banding on the eastern side associated with that convective burst. Radar is showing some decent convection as well, located relatively close to the center. The western edge of the center obviously is lacking that convection as compared to the east side of that center. It is trying to pull in a little bit of dry air on the east side of the circulation as well. But the latest forecast model tracks have shifted a little bit west as well, which will give it some more residence time over the eastern Gulf of Mexico. But with a very subtle upper level low near the Gulf Coast region, there is going to be some westerly shear that's going to impact this system as it passes through the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and that should prevent rapid intensification type of a scenario with Elsa. Looks like it is going to be a tropical storm throughout its duration through the eastern Gulf. Zooming out a bit, you can see a lot of that dry air just ahead of this system. But it does seem to have a little bit of a moist area within the atmosphere here carved out as well. So there is a chance that this could intensify as it lifts off to the north-northwest toward Havana. Even potentially some Category 1 hurricane conditions down there near the Zapata swamp, maybe pretty close to Havana as well. But look at that system, a pretty compact core that appears to be having a convective burst so far this morning, which could be a sign of just a little bit of intensification on approach to Cuba. And there you can see that official forecast track a little bit further west, keeping it just offshore Tampa, but that means that the worst impacts are also going to come in here over the western Florida peninsula. And that's because this system is definitely an east side loaded system. You can see that on satellite. The abundance of convection located near and just to the east of center. That's also going to be where the worst storm surge is going to be anticipated. 2 to 4 foot storm surge up in those storm surge prone areas of the Tampa Bay region. A 1 to 2 foot storm surge here along the Florida Keys. Tropical storm warnings are in effect. Tropical storm watches all the way up near the Big Bend region of Florida, anticipating even the chance of a little bit further west shift of a track, and then Apalachicola could have some problems with this system. I'm monitoring this here with the Radar Omega app. It does look like there is a bit of a convective burst as the system is approaching Cuba. A little bit more vertically aligned than it has been in its past, when it really was weakening a bit, when it had that west to east tilt from the low levels up to the upper levels. You really want a tropical system to be vertically aligned. When it's vertically aligned, that's when it's most effective at producing that latent heat. That's when it's the most efficient of a heat engine to develop that lower pressure and even a runaway pressure drop at the surface when you get the vertical alignment of the low-level center with the mid-levels. But this system has been tilted through a large portion of its life cycle, and Hurricane Hunter aircraft is indicating continued tilt with this system. But decent amount of convection located close to center, as confirmed by Havana Cuba radar. But here is this little bit of a further west track with the official track here by the National Hurricane Center. You can see these tropical storm warnings up and down the west coast of Florida. Tropical storm watch up in the Big Bend region of Florida, potentially anticipating even a further west shift of that track. And I did show you that peak surge graphic as well here from the National Hurricane Center, showing that 2 to 4 foot peak surge up there near the Tampa Bay area. And this is going to be passing just to the west of Tampa Bay tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon. And then once that center passes by Tampa Bay, that's when the southwesterlies are going to come in. And that's when you certainly could get a potentially devastating storm surge of 2 to 4 feet, especially along the immediate coastline there. Could certainly have a life-threatening storm surge with the 2 to 4 feet. And the dirty side of the system, or the dangerous side on the east side of the system, is going to track over the west coast of Florida. And here you can see the Hurricane Hunter aircraft data, measuring that surface pressure, 1,009 millibars adjusted to 1,006. You can see these northwesterlies on the west side of the circulation, easterlies on the north side of it, and definitely showing that circulation, low-level circulation, is located on the western edge of that cloud shield. That Hurricane Hunter drop zone data also showing that the sea level surface pressures are relatively consistent. So it is maintaining its intensity as it approaches the Zapata Swamp region there of southern Cuba. This data is from the tropicaltidbits.com data here. But you can definitely see this pressure fall down to about 1,009 millibars, extrapolated down to 1,006. Not much in the way of a temperature rise near the center of the storm, and in fact, just the opposite. That is showing that it doesn't have that eye that's clearing out with subsidence in the center of the circulation, helping to warm those temperatures. That would be a sign of potentially rapid intensification, but near the center where you do have that abundance of convection and rainfall, temperature dropping to that dew point there as well, right near the center, near that convection, where you are getting that heavy rainfall as well near the center of that circulation. But it's showing a tropical storm, a high-end tropical storm, maintaining its intensity on approach to Cuba, just to the southeast of the Havana area. These are the new hurricane intensity models. This graphic display here is available on the tropicaltidbits.com website, showing a maintenance of intensity through landfall here, and even as it passes over Cuba, and then once it passes over land over the southeast, you get that rapid deterioration in intensity. Some of these models do show a weakening as it passes over Cuba a bit, but then a reinvigoration of this system back up to where it is right about now as a mid to high range tropical storm. That is going to a little bit of some increase in intensity as it lifts up through the eastern Gulf of Mexico, but there is going to be just a little bit of southwesterly wind shear as well. The hurricane models, the spaghetti plots here, are supporting that slightly further west track, even potentially putting Apalachicola at risk tomorrow evening. Yeah, find my graphic here. And it shows landfall at about 48 hours from now. So that's going to be Wednesday morning when this is approaching that Big Bend region of Florida. Looks like landfall is going to be a little bit to the east of Apalachicola, and the concave nature of the shoreline here definitely could lead to another 2 to 4 foot storm surge a little bit further north. And then this thing tracks inland through southeastern Georgia, central eastern South Carolina, eastern North Carolina as well. Could be a bit of a tornado threat just to the east of center, especially if this tracks a little bit more inland. That would put the eastern Carolina, southeastern Georgia in that front right, or especially the right quadrant of this system. It could certainly develop a tornado threat depending on the instability there, entrainment of dry air, and how rapidly this storm system ejects off to the northeast. But even though this forecast track is west of Tampa now, it's still going to have a bad storm surge, especially just as this system passes to the north of Tampa tomorrow evening. That's when we're going to start to get those southwesterlies pumping up the bay, piling up that water into Tampa Bay, and that could easily be a 2 to 4 foot storm surge there on the west coast of Florida. And that wind shear across the Gulf is going to increase just a little bit, helping to prevent some rapid intensification. A little bit of an upper level low here over the south central Gulf Coast, and in general should have just a little bit of southwest to northeast oriented shear here at 300 millibars on the eastern side of the Gulf of Mexico. And I have seen some interesting discussions on Twitter amongst the tropical experts saying that wind shear in the low to mid levels of the troposphere can be more impactful on a tropical system than that deep layer shear, especially when you have a more intensifying tropical cyclone, a more mature one with a better outflow structure, because those convective bursts can build up to the upper part of the troposphere and that outflow will expand out, and that can help to choke off that upper tropospheric wind shear just a bit. And Elsa has been battling lower tropospheric wind shear throughout its life cycle with that rapid motion from east to west and those very strong trade winds at the lower levels relative to weaker winds aloft. And that lower tropospheric wind shear had a devastating impact on Elsa, preventing it from really ramping up into a stronger hurricane after it passed over the Lesser Antilles. Kept leading to more of a tilted structure from the low levels up to the mid and upper level circulation. The low level circulation further off to the west, tilting off to the east with time due to that storm relative wind shear. And but this is the deep layer wind shear is going to increase a bit, and because the outflow structure isn't very robust with Elsa, for that reason it's going to have difficulty counteracting that southwest and northeast oriented shear, and that should keep this system tropical storm on approach to the Florida Peninsula. I was going to chase Elsa if it was a hurricane and a little bit stronger of a system, but I'm going to be watching Friday closely, a northwesterly flow event centered around Omaha there, eastern Nebraska, into western and central Iowa. I do think that there could even be a tornado threat, maybe a derecho type of a threat up there on Saturday, so I am keeping a very close eye on that for storm chasing potential. The Dominator 4 also needs quite a bit of work. It's been overheating a bit as I've been heading up the mountains here, heading up that steep terrain. Those hotter conditions have been leading to Dominator 4 overheating. Also, I'm still working on getting the Dominator weather station mounted on the roof of Dominator 4 with a steel roof rack, working with Sasha and Critter on that. Waterproofing Dominator 4, we're going to turn the thing into a submarine. But here is the official forecast track. Tomorrow morning, it is going to pass over the Keys, so late night tonight, it's going to lift to the north of Havana, pass well to the west of Key West. But with all that convection loaded up on the eastern side of this circulation, I do think that that convection is going to pass right over the western Keys and the western Florida Peninsula, bringing with it a potentially life-threatening storm surge. 1 to 2 feet to the south of Tampa, 2 to 4 feet though there in Tampa, especially when you get those southwesterlies piling that water up into the Tampa Bay area. And it's going to pass just to the west of Tampa Bay tomorrow evening. So I think that tomorrow night, just after dark, is when those southwesterlies are going to whip around the south side of the circulation, pile up Tampa Bay, into Tampa Bay there, and bring that 2 to 4 foot storm surge. And also the concavity here with the shape of the coastline up through the Florida Big Bend. Anywhere east of this center, and especially if that center passes a little bit closer to Apalachicola, that would put the onshore flow throughout this concave area here north of Tampa. That Cedar Key location could be have a decent surge as well from Elsa as it lifts off to the north. And the official track does intensify it up to its current level. Max sustained winds of about 65 miles an hour expected, making landfall Does look like a landfall late night, Tuesday night, probably closer to Wednesday morning there. But tomorrow night, that's when that storm surge is going to arrive in the Tampa Bay area with that potentially 2 to 4 foot surge there expected. And I probably should chase Elsa, but I feel like I'd be better served chasing the Friday event out there in eastern Nebraska and also Iowa. And we'll take a look at that right now. Looking at that Havana radar one more time from AccuWeather. See that little spin out there, some banding on the east side of the circulation. Definitely showing some convection as well near the center, confirming satellite based on that radar data. So now let's take a look at the severe weather setup for Friday. And the Storm Prediction Center has added a 15% risk on Friday, and we'll take a look at the GFS model. It seems like kind of an average of the GFS and the European were accurate here with Tropical Storm Elsa. The European model lifting it more rapidly off to the north as a much weaker storm, dying over Hispaniola. But the GFS showing that further west and south track ended up being accurate, but a weaker storm, basically splitting the difference right between the two. And here on Wednesday afternoon, you can see that system over southeastern Georgia. Elsa lifting off to the northeast, weakening over land. There is a chance of a tornado threat on that eastern quadrant of that system. And you can see this big anticyclone building in over the southwestern U.S. as monsoon season continues down there. There have been a lot of flash flood warnings, especially in the Tucson area, southern Arizona. There was also a debris plug up in Big Water. David Rankin told me about up there. So this is on Thursday, and you can see this ridge starting to get a bit suppressed. You've got a couple of vorticity maxima here trying to break down that ridge just a little bit. And these are going to ride over top of that ridge, and then you're going to get a northwesterly flow event there on Saturday with these systems. There you can see that potent storm system dropping southeast on Friday afternoon. Looks like central and eastern Nebraska could certainly be under the gun there with the potential of even significant severe weather. Look at this vortex diving south on Friday evening. A lot of flow on its southern periphery with that lobe of vorticity. Zoom this out a bit to get an idea of what the pattern looks like. And this is going to be a very, very potent jet streak here along the southern periphery of this vortex that's riding over the top of the anticyclone over the southwestern U.S. And right along the leading periphery of this jet streak is where I expect an arc of supercell storms, largely east-southeasterly movers here. You could call this a northwesterly flow event, even though you do have stout cyclonic curvature here. A very intense vortex, and this is the new GFS model that's coming in. So that's really the event that I'm watching. It's on my radar for a storm chase out here. Southeastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas as well. Kansas City could certainly see an impact from this. And then I do expect a complex of storms, maybe even a derecho sliding southeast along this boundary. There's likely to be a complex of storms the night before as well from the entrance region of that jet with that other system. But then that vortex dives to the southeast through the central and northern plains, and certainly could be a very favorable environment there for tornadoes, significant severe weather as well, very moist lower atmosphere, and abundance of Kate as well for that system. There you can see all those big dew points that are in place across the Missouri River Valley, eastern Nebraska, down into northeastern Kansas. This area here of stability is carved out by a complex of storms that even the GFS is able to resolve this far out. We're just going to have to get closer with the NAM model and the HRRR to really see if this thing materializes. But you can see a little bit of a triple point trying to build up there near the Sioux City area upon initial glance, and a bit of a warm front outflow boundary extending into western into central Iowa as well. Another outflow boundary down here through the Kansas City area. Those storms are likely to follow that outflow boundary off to the southeast, ride it, potentially stretch that vorticity into the vertical, and we could even get a tornado potential with this system. There you can see a pretty potent surface low ahead of that very potent upper level trough as well. Southerlies up in there. Nice banana shaped surface low right on the nose of that surface low near York, I-80 corridor. Looks like a good target as well. But we're going to need to get a lot closer to this event to really resolve those mesoscale details like convection or a complex of storms that may form overnight. You can definitely see a southwesterly low-level jet there nosing in to southeastern Nebraska at 0Z on Friday. So this is definitely on my radar, and I'm going to get Dominator 4 looked at and fixed up before I head out to chase this system here. Southeastern Nebraska, northeastern Kansas, northwestern Missouri as well could have some potential. Westerly 700 flow there as well. An abundance of Cape within that warm sector. Look at that Cape here, and along an outflow boundary from that complex of storms that slides off to the southeast. Really the nose of that instability, southeastern Nebraska, northeastern Kansas looks interesting. All of eastern Nebraska, but it is going to depend on that complex of storms that develops on Thursday night, sliding off to the southeast. If that'll be too substantial or not, then it could obviously snuff out this severe weather, but it is just a little bit too far out to resolve. But there is going to be a very potent storm system dropping off to the southeast. There you can see that vortex riding over top that ridge, sliding off to the southeast. It looks like this heat dome builds back up into western Canada as well, which could slow down high plains insanity season up there near Calgary and Red Deer. Another system coming in, though, here to the southwest that should bring more severe weather up there in Canada. Mark's been chasing like a beast, and it does look like southwesterly flow resumes up here around the July 10th period in the wake of this northwesterly flow event there in eastern Nebraska, northeastern Kansas. Then you get more southwesterly flow across Alberta, and that could be a reinvigoration of severe weather season up there. Central southern Alberta. Look at that little pocket there of near 60 dew points. That's the Canadian high plains insanity season. Not great moisture, though, further east across Saskatchewan and Manitoba. You can see most of that moisture is shunted off to the southeast by that northwesterly flow event here across eastern Nebraska, western and central Iowa. So you don't get that blob of moisture sitting over the Dakotas that is necessary for Saskatchewan and Manitoba to go big. Really feeling for Sean sitting up there in Melville with not much to chase up there. But the high plains insanity season up here in Alberta is still going strong. Calgary up toward Red Deer. Definitely I see another event coming in around July 10th with that southwesterly flow resuming up there across the Canadian prairies. And in the wake of this potent vortex, almost becomes a little bit trapped between the anticyclone and this semi-permanent trough over eastern Canada that's been up there. I should chase Elsa, but I'm going to be saving up for this northwesterly flow event here in eastern Nebraska. I got to fix up my vehicle as well, but there is a 15% area. There is a slight risk area today, too, centered around Deadwood. Around western South Dakota. That'll include the Black Hills region. So I want to give you a quick look at that as well. High base storms, minimal tornado threat. You can see this little subtle perturbation whipping across Wyoming here in the late afternoon hours, and that's going to be enough to fire up some severe weather. Deadwood area, my friends in Deadwood there, you're probably going to see some lightning, maybe a hail producer moving in late night tonight, and that jet streak arrives at about 0Z across western South Dakota, northeastern Wyoming, southeastern Montana. Let's take a look at the dew points up there. Got some dew points that are up into the 60s, pooling up into northeastern Wyoming. So there's a chance, with the way that Wyoming behaves, that you could get a little mesoscale accident up there. Let's zoom in here in western South Dakota so we can see a little bit better as to what's going on, and definitely see an abundance of convection there by 0Z. That's what a lot of these dew points in the 60s are actually from collapsing storms. And it does look like the 3-kilometer NAM by 21Z fires some potential high-base supercell storms here across northeastern Wyoming, near Gillette, out through the Sundance area, building along the southwestern periphery of the Black Hills as well. Let's look at a forecast 3-kilometer NAM sounding. Big temperature dew point spreads. We're talking, look at that textbook inverted V sounding, as we call it, showing very dry conditions below cloud base there. The V being created by the temperature profile and the dew point profile. 40-degree dew point spread, so very high base severe weather. But there is a decent amount of cape here in the mid-levels of the atmosphere to where you could squeeze out some severe hail. But really damaging wind looks like the main threat from this with such dry conditions below cloud base. You're going to have a lot of downdraft cape, as we call it, a lot of evaporational cooling below cloud base. Big microbursts out there, dry microbursts out here across northeastern Wyoming and along the southwestern periphery of the Black Hills. But then these storms will develop and collapse, and rain-cooled air will allow those dew points to move up a little bit. So those dew points that we were looking at 0Z are largely due to collapsing storms, rainfall as well, a little bit of evapotranspiration up above the ground. There, but look at how dry it is. Even the 3-kilometer NAM, which is a pretty good high plains model for moisture, shows very dry conditions across eastern Wyoming and along the Black Hills. A little bit of convection here, fires over the Black Hills. Hot, dry conditions though below cloud base. So you're going to have some lightning producers. These are the kind of storms that can also produce wildfires because you get a lot of dry storms, but you still get the lightning strikes out there. A little bit better moisture buried within the Black Hills, the higher terrain up there. Even the 3-kilometer NAM is resolving that, but a lot of that is due to precipitation falling in there. Mountain storms developing over the Black Hills. 3-kilometer NAM also has these very high base storms at HRRR over northeastern Wyoming. Not a great model in the high plains and really anywhere, but it's doing a pretty good job at showing the storms firing here over the higher terrain of the Black Hills by 3, 4, 5 p.m. Deadwood could certainly get some lightning throughout the region, but downdrafts are going to be dominating out here across northeastern Wyoming. But this is why there's a slight risk in place for this region. Some damaging straight line winds expected northeastern Wyoming through the Black Hills region. Getting those storms building down through the Colorado foothills as well within that marginal risk zone a little bit further south. But not a lot of dew points here. These are going to be kind of your classic monsoon season type storms here along the Colorado foothills, and even storms firing west of the Continental Divide. Could be some dry storms, dry lightning happening that could trigger more wildfires out there across the western slope of Colorado. Maybe some more storms developing over the southern Texas Panhandle, air mass storms. Yesterday didn't quite materialize in terms of its tornado threat with those south-southwesterly moving supercell structures through the western Texas Panhandle, closing in on the New Mexico border, but I was watching it closely there during July 4th. So that's what we're looking at. Definitely keeping a close eye on Friday with that northwesterly flow event. Deeper moisture expected. Here is the slight risk with the Storm Prediction Center. Today, no tornado threat because of those inverted V soundings. You do have a little bit of a tornado threat today, though, across southwestern Florida and the Florida Keys. We'll keep a close eye on that as well. Another banana-shaped marginal there tomorrow across the high plains. And here you can see the day 5, 15% area, centered across around the Omaha area, Sioux Falls, Sioux City, eastern Nebraska, southeastern South Dakota, central and western Iowa. Looks like there is a very potent trough that's going to dive southeast over top that ridge. Definitely will be a chaseable event up there. So now I want to take a look at the radar back in Florida. I know that we're popping around quite a bit here, but I do want to see if there's any potential tornado producers out there. I do see a couple of special weather statements over the Florida Peninsula. I suspect that the wind shear isn't quite favorable enough for tornado potential, but here you can see some storms that are developing in the interior southern Florida that do have a special weather statement, but I'm not seeing any supercell structures just yet. If anything, these look like air mass storms located just to the southeast of Ave Maria there. Let's take a look and see if we have any circulation associated with that. Not seeing much in the way of rotation right now. Maybe a little bit of a broad convergent area or a mesocyclone trying to form there just on the east side of Ave Maria. No, that's just a radar artifact. These look largely like air mass storms moving southeast to northwest. Oh, that's a new feature. Nice. That looks cool. Some of these close range radars as well. Looks like some rainfall coming into the Florida Keys. Maybe you could get some water spouts along this boundary. Looks like a convergent boundary there near Key West. Keep an eye under some of these convective bases around the Key West area for spoot formation. Water spouts like to happen along these convergence boundaries. You get a little bit of vorticity that can be stretched into the vertical to get water spouts. And then you've got that blob of rain coming in from the south. Look at this outflow. A little bit of outflow within this relatively dry environment here in South Florida. Mike Tice is about to see a nice shelf cloud coming in from the south. He's probably on water spout patrol. But these are moving just a little bit fast to have water spouts. You really need those more stationary boundaries there. And then you can get some convection that will develop and then stretch that vorticity into the vertical. But you're about to get some rapidly deteriorating conditions. You've already had this lead squall come through across the Florida Keys, and then you've got another squall coming in behind it. All the convection, for the most part, is located near and to the east of center. And pretty soon we're going to start to be able to see this center on radar, Key West radar as well. We're going to start to see that compact core here of this tropical storm here on Key West radar. And I'm going to be going live through the night tonight as this passes just to the west of Key West. What is that fort out here with that island a little bit further west? That's probably it, right? Maybe head way out there where that fort's located, a national park out there. I think you could take trips out there, ferries out there when there's not tropical storm warnings, but that center is going to pass very close to there. It's going to be very near Cuba this evening. We'll be tracking it going live as that lifts to the north of Havana, passing to the west of Key West. What are those Tortugas out there or something? Forgot what that island is way out there. I can always look it up here. I'll know it before the next briefing. And then we get a little bit of some re-intensification over the eastern Gulf as it passes to the west of Tampa. And then tomorrow evening, just after sunset, we could get those southwest and northeast winds on the south side of the circulation, funneling up Tampa Bay and leading potentially to a 2 to 4 foot storm surge in that location. But there is a 2% tornado threat here across South Florida. We'll have to see if this convection can mature into little supercell structures. Right now, just some looking largely like air mass thunderstorms. You really need that tropical storm to get a little bit closer to get the wind shear that would be favorable for a tornado threat there over the central and southern peninsula. But as the system is passing to the west of the Florida peninsula, you'll likely get some convective bands here over the central and southern portion of Florida. Could be some tornado warnings out there as well tomorrow, but we'll break down that threat additionally live as this thing passes over Cuba over the night, over this evening, and then during the night tonight, passing just to the west of Key West. But a lot of those bad conditions are going to overspread the Florida Keys, and that's why they're expecting a 1 to 2 foot storm surge there on the dirty side of the system of those southerlies over the Florida Keys. Also some water spout potential there. A lot of rainy, gusty winds maybe as well. But definitely not the worst case scenario with this tropical storm, but certainly could have some impacts. So thank you everybody for tuning in to my weather report today. I'll leave you with this experimental storm surge graphic from NHC showing the 2 to 4 foot surge they're expected in the Tampa Bay area, especially as those southwesterly winds wrap around that circulation. Also the southerlies will be piling up water into these bays as well near Tampa and off to the south. Mainly to the north of Bonita Beach. So thank you everybody for tuning in to my weather report here. I'll continue to track Tropical Storm Elsa during the night tonight as it passes to the west of the Keys. Maybe we'll have some live reports from Mike Tice, who is out there in the Florida Keys right now as well, likely on Spout Patrol. And then we'll be going live during the day tomorrow as Tropical Storm Elsa is going to be passing just to the west of Tampa and then making a right-hand turn up there into the concave portion of the coastline there to the north of Tampa, to the east of Apalachicola. But the models are trending just a little bit further west, so there still is a chance Apalachicola could get an impact from Elsa, but there is going to be a sharp edge right near the center of the storm, where to the west of it you're hardly going to have any impacts, but to the east of that center, with that convection loaded on the east side of the system, that's where the worst impacts are expected, near and just to the east of the center of Elsa. And we'll also continue to watch Friday with that potent trough diving southeast into the central Missouri River Valley, eastern Nebraska, southeastern South Dakota, central and western Iowa. Looks like that's going to be my next storm chase. So thank you everybody for tuning in to my weather reports. Dominate the storm.